Welcome to the Weekly Shonen Jump Review, where I review all of the weekly Shonen Jump titles that I read as they are being released. As a reminder of my format, I will start with a quick summary of the chapter, then give my overall thoughts for the chapter, and then at the end I will give an overall ranking of all of the chapters as if I am turning in the surveys. As I will be discussing the most recent chapters, there will be spoilers. You have been warned. One Piece is back, and Oda blesses us with a beautiful 2-page color spread of Rocks and his crew. We are also blessed with some massive lore about the covenants that Imu can make. Shanks feels that he had the lowest level of covenant, or more specifically, probably had, because it clearly looks like it's from the arm that was eaten off. The level that Harold has is more advanced, but it means that you exchange getting a huge amount of power, undying, and the ability to teleport with being completely under Imu's control. Harold realizes he made a huge mistake in putting his faith in the world government, and before he loses his senses to Imu's control, he requests that Loki and Jarl defeat him and tell everyone what happened. He also tells Loki he needs to eat what is most likely Luffy's fruit. Then he loses his mind fully and attacks everyone. Harold slams his sword through Jarl's head, who is still alive but can't remember anything, and is chasing Loki when Gaban and Shanks jump in to stop Harold. Right at the end, we end with a hammer being thrown at Loki as he is in the treasure room. I think that the gek sound is important here, but I am not deep enough into the weeds of the 1,000 chapters to know who that could be referring to. The one thing about One Piece that is hard is that Oda remembers everything. It's great, obviously, but sometimes things just go way over my head. Awesome chapter, just chock full of lore. Lore galore. Akane meets up with Shomei after moving into her new place to begin her God of Death training. Man, that sentence would be pretty crazy if this was a battle manga. Anyway, Shomei brings Akane to his show where he reveals that he will not only be demonstrating the God of Death story, but another story that pairs well with the God of Death story. I am really curious as to what this story could be, though these breather chapters aren't always as hype as this series can be. It's still nice to get these more slice of life moments as a in-between of these big hype moments. I asked for a Descartes story last week, and I got one. Today's chapter starts off with a Descartes backstory, which is as adorable as it is hilarious, where she goes to acquire the Fatal Shot magic. We get some evidence about how much of a badass she is when she completes the trial as a child that most adults can't even attempt without decades of practice. We then see a collage of her acquiring her other magics, which include a crazy 2-page spread bringing us back to the present of her destroying a bunch of zombies, and we even see a little window into her mind and how she hates what she's doing but will do it to be the best. Then who should appear but her own brother in the mess of the zombies? See, this is how you make a magic that I want to see clobbered to bits. The octopus is mostly just silly at this point. This chapter did not disappoint. In fact, it was one of my favorite of the entire series. Sakamoto is chatting with Torres post-fight when a video of Akira appears facing off against Slur and all of his personalities. He tries using the Rion persona to talk her out of fighting him before shifting to his Takamura persona to take her out. But Akira has developed a counter trap against Takamura and slashes him. Has she found the kryptonite of the strongest character in the series? Well, a shadow of the real one anyway. Far more talking than fighting happened during this chapter, but it was still a fun one anyway. Shinichi and Chihiro have a nice chat in the middle of the battlefield where he catches up on way more life story than can be handled in one conversation. So, like most conversations with your uncle at Christmas time. They swap their ninja ways and speed run to the realization that they can't agree with each other and need to take each other out. Samura also rejoins the fight, and the fight will continue. The tension that the author is able to build in this chapter is crazy, and I'm impressed with what they are able to do in terms of building tension with so little fighting. Everyone's favorite gag manga continues with the plot again this week as Wolf is caught up on the plan and decides to go to Nemu to ask her for her response to his confession that he made earlier. She turns him down, but in a nice way, and we learn more about how Kanchi needs to be a better Tengu so he can fly. Nemu then texts everything to Keigo, who misunderstands everything and makes everything worse. Because of the events of the chapter, everyone tries to break up the groups that Moai made. The double-page spread was pretty hilarious at the end. I have loved where this series has gone at this point, and I think it is striking the perfect balance of gag and story. This week, we are keeping in the flashback with Kyo, Taiki, and Hina to start. You know, it's really a shame that all of the recent nonsense with Hina happened because I really do like her character. I like her, but it's hard for me to be even happy when I see her now because of all that has happened. They have a nice time and the annoying coach comes back. Honestly, that dude is literally the worst, and I am so happy that Kyo and Taiki taught him a lesson. We return to the Taiki-Kyo match, and the boys are speaking with their hearts through badminton, as all true players would do. Taiki starts to build a lead, but Kyo is nowhere close to being done. I was really worried where we were going with all the flashbacks, but I am happy that it landed distinctly in the friend zone. That's what we all wanted. Well. Maybe we don't have as much to worry about. It turns out that the guy who we thought was the big bad is not actually the big bad, but a big boss who is seriously misunderstood. Kind of given like Vegeta vibes, honestly. For a moment, with all the story drops and lore dumping, I was getting the distinct sudden end of Red Hood vibes, but it turns out that this guy is just trying to keep the seal strong on the true big bad. That the Ice Kingdom is actually a kingdom of refugees from the world of man. Also, it turns out that men had the opportunity to help and not be invaded, but they predictably acted like the worst. Otter now has to try to convince this guy that he's the main character and that he's a good guy. Not gonna lie, I was really worried that we were seeing the end. But I ended up liking this chapter. Let's hope we pick up the story from here and that it isn't just a prelude to a quick end. We see more of One-san's story after her double cross of Yodaka. The main ninja family seem like they have killed off her parents and tried to kill her sister off by taking her off life support. Man, they suck. You shouldn't have to serve them, girl. You need to do your own thing. Best man Umineko jumps in with the flower save. I love how it's used here as a counter to One-san's power. Who needs a Kekai to win? He lights himself on fire and the fight really is getting underway. Man, the mangaka is going so hard with some of the details on some of these panels. The art is really good. Kiyoshi is still napping and getting the spirit bomb treatment from all of the Nibans in the neighborhood. Meanwhile, Shishi and Lulu's fight is still raging. Lulu punches so hard she destroys her castle and all of the forest around it. But Shishi is okay. No problems. In fact, he can even eat all of the damage he took. Somehow. And then hits her with a move called Teen Spirit. Smells like Nirvana in this chapter. But moral of the story, humans and demons should all just get along. Shishi wins with the power of friendship. Mimei goes with Mizuo to a dessert cafe in preparation for the listener Koshin, and we hear that you can only send in 10 entries to make it, so Mizuo plans to use 10 clinchers to ensure she wins the competition. After a collage time skip, we get to see the radio broadcast of the first round of the listener Koshin. After a bit of tension, Mizuo makes it to the next round, then says she and Mimei should go outside to listen to the live submission section. Fun chapter, but I do wonder where this show can continue to go from here. I enjoy reading it for sure, but I'm curious where the next step for this story is. If it continues to be just like a general slice of life, I think that's fine, but I do think that will limit ultimately what it could be. Mahoraga and Dabura's fight is set to begin, and I think it's totally fair for this technique to be considered forbidden now, because just imagine teaching the technique to your kid. Like, hey, I'm basically teaching you how to summon an all-powerful killing machine here, so don't do that? We also get confirmation that Yuka is going to die, no matter what the result of the battle, so to me, that kind of just like invalidates this whole duel and the result. but whatever. Dabura and Maharaga are doing some god-level fighting with pretty great art panels, and then we cut away to Tsurugi and Maru's fight, which is much more human-looking. However, Tsurugi's heavenly restriction does give a buff to his fighting abilities by making him super fast and strong and hard to predict. Plus, he's got a super special weapon to help him out. But then Maru has a conversation with his eye, maybe? It was unclear. And decides to fight for realsies and messes up gravity. I think that Geje has really benefited from gaining an artist that can help bring his vision to life. This series so far has been very well drawn, and the panels have been very well composed. If maybe the story is a bit lackluster, in my opinion. Osoegawa gets into a fight with the mustache-twirling villain, and he decides to pull out all of his magic and hit him all at once with it, and it just kind of smacks into him with a bunch of spells. Again, this is an opportunity to show some creativity with how magic is used, but instead it just kind of generically is all thrown out there with no rhyme or reason. Pretty disappointing, really. I mean, you set up a main character who has apparently a untold amount of spells that he is able to use, and most of them are worthless. Most of them are kind of stupid. With that kind of setup, you have the perfect opportunity and ability to come up with these creative solutions to problems you create. Because, again, you are the author. You can create problems, and then you can create solutions that are a creative, interesting way of solving something. But instead, you just created a generic situation with a generic villain and then took a bunch of kind of ideas and then made them a bunch of nothing. It could be better. Meanwhile, the heroine is using a summoned elephant to distract regular folks from the magic fight. It looks like Osoegawa is able to come out on top in the end. But yeah, unfortunately, ever since the first chapter, it's not been doing great for me. It feels really weird for me to say this after I hyped it up as much as I did after chapter 1, but we're feeling dangerously close to drop watch for this series. It's frustrating, honestly. Kana finally takes a backseat. This time it's Kanai's turn. I know that's confusing. It's the childhood friend's turn, okay? And for this chapter, we get some flashbacks to when Iamori's dad left him. Iamori's siblings get so upset over the dad going out to get the milk that they both get 104 fevers at the same time. Which to me feels like they should have been taken to the hospital. But no, it's porridge in bed. Sorry, rice gruel in bed instead. Iamori's too busy stepping up to go on to the class ski trip, but Kanai comes in with the souvenirs, and it turns out that it's going to be the same place that they're going to now. Honestly, this kind of felt like an unnecessary chapter, but no worries, fun ski times await. Hero Girl and Demon Lord do a body swap thing, and hijinks ensue, but honestly, not the funniest of hijinks. It was kind of meh. Like, not bad, I guess, but just meh. I'm not ready to drop it just yet, but we're getting really close. Really close. Anyway, those were the chapters that I read this week. I am skipping the chapters that I skipped this week again, because as you guys know, I didn't have any time to get any progress on rereading. Same story, I know. I'm going to try my best to make this a little bit more regular so I can actually make progress as we go. It'll be a little weird because I know that we're coming into the break period, so that will make things a little strange. But when we get back into the swing of things, I'm going to try to do this in a bit more of like a regimented fashion so that I can actually keep myself to doing this every week. I'll put my rankings up above my face now. No, viewers, you are not seeing things. One Piece is not in first. I know, even with all the lore. Sometimes attention must be paid to chapters that are of that high quality. And honestly, I think there is a clear line of demarcation with these chapters, with Hima-Ten being a clear dividing line. There also tends to be an upper clutch that are consistently high quality too, but that can definitely change through time. Next week, we are going to continue our Jump Plus Spotlight series, but that's it for today's review. Thank you all for watching this week. I look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks.